So again, thank you so much for taking your time to join us tonight in this session, or if you're watching this in the future. I always think that's cool to say now that we're doing so many conferences virtually, that you could be watching something in the future, kind of like time travel for conferences. But I'm going to be sharing tonight about 10 steps to hosting an app design and prototyping camp. I'm going to be sharing an experience that I had last summer with the students in my district when we ran this camp for the very first time, and some of the thoughts that I have about how we're going to change it up this summer. We're currently in planning for how we're going to roll this out for year number 2 this summer as part of our summer school and also as a separate camp. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can do that tonight if you're joining, or whenever you might watch this video on Twitter. My Twitter handle, sorry about that, is @TurnbullChris. So you could just tweet me on there and I'll respond back to you. Also, if you want to go to the web address down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there, bit.ly/STEM forward. That will take you to the website where you can grab a copy of these slides if you'd like. There's also clickable links there for everything that I'm going to talk about that's linked up in the slideshow. And I've added in some other thoughts there as well about the process. All right, so just a quick little few facts about myself. I'm a personalized learning specialist in St. Paul schools. We are a fairly large urban school district in the state, and we're one-to-one iPads. So it's definitely been an interesting journey with our students as we've worked with teachers and students to integrate our iPads into everything that we're doing, including this app design and prototyping camp that I'm going to share about. I'm also very fortunate to be an Apple Distinguished Educator, and some of the resources that I'm going to share with you about are from Apple, and they're completely free for you to use. A little bit about the why behind this project as I start off here. Even though I'm from a fairly large district, we really don't have a comprehensive computer science program across the district at all of our schools. So not all of our students go through elementary and into middle school and into high school with computer science experiences at all of those grade levels. And we were designing a new computer science framework that we're rolling out in our district, in addition to some new elective courses at the middle school and high school level. And we really wanted to get our students excited about taking those courses and excited to have computer science experiences at all levels of their education. Because what we really know, and I'm sure everyone has experienced this over the past year, if your district has been in distance learning for very long at all, is we're so reliant on technology these days, right? Everything in our personal lives, it is hard to reach out and touch something that doesn't have some aspect of coding or a computer chip or something like that involved in it. Our smart thermostats, our washer and our dryer, our stove, of course, our phones and laptops and all of our devices that we have. But it is really kind of hard to look around your home and find something that doesn't have some part or some small piece of coding to it. So we really want our students to be prepared to live in this world that just keeps getting more complex, right? As more things are developed every day to make our lives easier and simpler, and to help us in all that we want to do. And we know that currently there are more STEM related jobs than there are STEM graduates from our colleges, and especially in the area of computer science. And so we really wanted to get students in my district excited about taking these elective computer science courses, even knowing that they didn't have a background in coding as part of their elementary or their middle school experience up to this point. And so what we wanted to do was kind of design this summer experience for our students to give them kind of a taste of app development, but knowing that they didn't have that coding experience. We also wanted to introduce them to some technology career pathways to get them excited about, what do app developers do? How do they come up with all the apps that we see in the App Store or in Google Play? Where do these ideas come from? What distinguishes one app from another? Why do we download these apps on our personal devices and our phones? And what kind of career pathway is involved in becoming an app developer? And what sort of financial gains are involved in being an app developer? So we really wanted to incorporate all of those aspects. And also at this point, my district had gone into distance learning at the beginning of March. And so we rolled out this coding camp and app development and prototype camp in the summer. So our students at that point had really not seen each other face to face in the hallways, in classes, after school, on the bus, all of the normal ways that they would interact with each other usually. And so through that social distancing and physical distancing, they were really missing each other. So we wanted to build in some summer enrichment time that would also help our students to really stay connected with each other. And we wanted to provide this enrichment opportunity since we knew that a lot of our students weren't traveling. They weren't not only traveling outside of their neighborhood or outside of St. Paul, but they weren't getting to travel around the state like they maybe did in the past. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for them to still stay connected, learn about technology, career pathways, to experience a little bit of app development and app design, and to just kind of have some fun through this summer project. And so what we did is we started out with kind of this 10-step process that I'm going to lay out for you. And I was very fortunate to be able to work with an Apple professional learning specialist assigned to my district, Kelly Regan. And we worked on coming up with this summer coding camp idea for our students. And so, of course, step number one is really designing a flyer, right? Somehow figuring out how to get your message out to students, to teachers, to schools, to families, the community, to let them know that you're going to offer this opportunity, whether it's during the summer or as an after school club, however you want to offer this, if it's in person or virtual or through a hybrid situation, you could do this in any of those ways and any of those formats. And so step one is really coming up with a flyer, some kind of catchy design that's going to get people visually interested and stop and read about your camp and how to sign up for it. Now, you could use a variety of different tools to design this. I happen to do all of this design through Keynote. So all of those hills and trees and camps, the little cabin there are all shapes. Just kind of layered on top of each other to be able to create this. And then, of course, that little plane and the camper are some shapes that are available within Keynote. So it was super easy to put this together in Keynote. Again, lots of other applications that are free that you could use. Canva, Google Slides, Google Drawings, PowerPoint is another great way to be able to create these. Again, since we're a one-to-one iPad district and we also have MacBook Airs for all of our teachers, Keynote was an easy go-to for me to be able to create this image. I also wanted a tool where I could export this out as an image and a PDF because I wanted to be able to distribute this in multiple different ways. Now, Kelly and I came up with this kind of catchy summer camp kind of theme with the cabin. What we soon learned as we were trying to recruit students is that was a lot more meaningful to Kelly and I. Most of our students in St. Paul haven't really been to a summer camp with a cabin and a campfire. They have more likely been to a basketball camp or a football camp during the summer. So this theme was a little bit more meaningful to us than to them as far as what was going on here with the summer camp kind of idea. But it did its job. It got people interested in the flyer and they took a close look at it. We got several students signed up through this. Which brings us to step number two then, as you're trying to get a summer coding camp or an after school club going. And again, we're kind of focused more on the app development and app design part of it today is what I'm talking about more so than the coding part. But step number two is really creating a balanced schedule. As I mentioned, we rolled this out for the summer. So we actually ran this camp in July and we wanted to be really cognizant that it was summer and summer in Minnesota is golden, right? And short. And we wanted our students to be outside, moving around, getting exercise and getting off of the screen for part of that time as well. So we were very mindful that we didn't want our camp to be all day. So we limited the camp to be from 9 to 12 every day for 2 weeks in a row. So a 10-day camp for a little less than 3 hours a day. And you can kind of see from the graphics there on the right, and I'll talk a little bit about it on the next slide too. We had different themes, again, going with our summer camp theme. So we had our campfire time where we had everyone together in one big group, and we introduced a new concept for the day all together. We had some exploration hike time where we sent our students off to really maybe explore something by themselves or in a small group. And it might be online and it might be offline during that exploration hike time. We also had open cabin time where Kelly and I were available online in Google Meets, waiting for students to come back if they had questions or if they just wanted to really show something off to us that they've been working on. So if they needed some extra support, we were there. We were also there to give them some pats on the back and some major kudos for the hard work that they were doing when they came in to show us the great things that they had. And then, of course, we also had some coding challenges built into ours because we were doing app design and app prototyping and coding all together. So we had a little coding challenge every day for our students as well, but kind of broke it up into that nice balanced schedule to get the information to the students, but also making sure that they were outside enjoying their summer as well. Those coding challenges that I mentioned, we use Swift Playgrounds. We are a one-to-one iPad district, so Swift Playgrounds is an app that's free that you can use on the iPad. You do not need to have any previous coding experience to do it. And as I mentioned, a lot of our students did not have previous coding experience. A few of them had used Scratch before, but none of them had used the Swift coding language. And Swift Playgrounds helps to introduce your students to the Swift language. Kind of see there on the screen down at the bottom, it suggests the coding commands in Swift. So students don't need to know that language ahead of time. They can just see those coding commands down there at the bottom and choose from those. And they also get some text that you can see over there on the left to guide them through those new commands or functions that are being introduced to them as they kind of work through this playground area where they can try out the code and kind of learn as they play along. All right, so we came up with our idea, we made a catchy flyer, we had a balanced schedule. Next, we needed to recruit students for step number 3. And again, I mentioned we were in distance learning at this point in my school district, so we didn't have any students right in front of us. And as I also mentioned, I work at the district level, so I didn't have any students who I was personally teaching. And Kelly, the Apple professional learning specialist that I was working with, also didn't have any students that she directly worked with. So we went about recruiting in a lot of creative ways. We were using a distance learning group in Schoology where we were pushing out messages every day to our staff about the new tools that we were using for distance learning. So we capitalized on that group where we had all of our staff enrolled, and we were pushing out messages about this camp that we were running for the first time with our students, trying to get teachers to help us to recruit students. We also leveraged our community education program. And within that, we have a program called Flipside After School Program for 5th through 8th grade students. So we actually became one of their summer offerings, and we had them help us recruit students as well and get students signed up for us to take the coding camp. We also emailed students. I work with our Genius Squad program across the district, and so I was emailing all the Genius Squad students who I knew in 5th through 8th grade and all of their advisors and all of the 5th through 8th grade teachers that I knew, trying to get them to help us to get students signed up for this camp. For that, we were able to use a Google form to get students to sign up and be able to collect all of their contact information and reach out to them afterward to get them all the details about the camp and where we were going to hold it online. So recruiting students was huge for us. Our 4th step then was actually really easy in my district because we had already picked a video conferencing tool to use back in March at that point. So we were using Google Meet, and specifically Google Meet because we were using the nickname meeting code feature of Google Meet, where we could create just a little meeting code like coding camp. And students could type in that code and actually join our camp, but only students in our district could use that code. So it gave us a nice, secure video conference where we knew that we wouldn't have anyone from outside of our district dropping in to our coding camp meetings with our students. Again, there's lots of other video conferencing tools that I know other school districts use: Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, all sorts of other tools. Any of those would certainly be fine. And again, if you're doing this app design and app prototyping camp in person, then you don't even really need to worry about the video conferencing tool because you'll be right there in person with them. One of the key features that we wanted to make sure that we were building into our video conference every day was really building relationships. Because as I mentioned, neither Kelly or I knew these students in depth or very well before this summer camp. I knew a few of them from either working with some teachers or through Genius Squad, but we really wanted to do some relationship building. So we were encouraging students to have their cameras on. We built in some extra time every morning before we started at 9 so that, again, students could connect. They could just share funny stories or jokes, whatever it was that they needed to be able to have kind of that social time with each other, since they hadn't seen each other in person either since March. Step number 5 then was all about how do we make this content easy for our students to be able to get to every day. Again, this was a pretty easy step for me and for Kelly because we use Schoology in my district for 5th through 8th grade, which was our target audience for this summer camp. So they were already used to using Schoology from the spring and actually from elementary as well. Our 4th and 5th grade students also use Schoology, so this was great. Our students were really familiar with it. It really helped us to keep everything organized. You can see there in the screenshot over the right side that we had a folder for every day of our 10 days, and then within each of those folders, we had a folder for each of our kind of thematic time slots: that campfire time, the exploration hike time, the open cabin time, and the coding challenge time. We really wanted to keep everything organized for each day because, again, it was summer. We knew some students would be coming and going with dentist appointments, driver's ed appointments, swimming lessons, and we wanted them to be able to quickly find any sort of resources that they missed out on. And if they wanted to come back in the afternoon and spend a little additional time working on this app prototyping, again, we wanted it to be easy for them to be able to come back and find everything that we had showed them in the morning and all the resources that they had available to work with. So the foldering system in Schoology really made it super easy for us to be able to create an online hub of all the resources so that our students could get back to that. It helped to keep it very organized. Again, we use iPads, so it was super iPad friendly to be able to use the Schoology app. Again, there are many other resources that you could use for free to organize your resources, probably the biggest one being Google, right? So you could create a Google site. You could have your resources in folders in Google Drive, and you may even use some other learning management systems in your district that wouldn't have any additional cost for you. So any way that you could set that up and keep it organized with all your materials is really your main goal in this step, so that your students can find what you showed them and be able to get back to it when they need to, and also to be able to submit anything to you that you need. All right. Step number 6 then really brought us into the main part of getting started with our coding camp. Once we got everything organized and our students recruited and our schedule laid out, then what we really wanted to do with our students was start helping them to learn a bit more about app design and app prototyping. And again, knowing that our students didn't have a background in coding and didn't already know how to create apps, and really our camp wasn't going to focus on that part of the coding. Our coding part of the camp was just on Swift Playgrounds. So the app design and the app prototyping was more about the process that app developers go through while they're coming up with their ideas and testing them out, finding out if they're worth creating, worth investing all that time in coding, and if there's interest in them. And so at this point, then what we really wanted to leverage, because it was summertime and our students hadn't seen each other and they were at home, was the whole idea of community service and really tying together app development with coming up with ideas that would help their community. And we really had community in the broadest terms for our students. So if community meant the neighborhood where they live, that was great. If community meant their school that they went to, that was also great. And if community meant their house, their family, their home, that was also all good. So we wanted our students to come up with an idea of an app that they could create or that they could take and change somehow, maybe add something to it that would help their community with some sort of challenge or problem that they could solve with this app. And so we really wanted our students to think about this in those terms. And we also wanted them to share ideas. And so Google Jamboard became an awesome tool for us at this step, because we had some students who weren't quite sure what they could work on without really knowing how to code. We had other students who wanted to get started right away and code and create those apps and get them in the App Store on day number 2. So we had kind of a balance of both. And Google Jamboard really helped us for the students who didn't have ideas, because they could see the ideas that other students were coming up with and then think about how they could modify those, or just seeing those ideas help them to come up with their own ideas. You can see a small sampling of the app ideas that our students had over on the right side. Most of their ideas kind of revolved around staying together or being able to be connected during that time of social distancing. A lot of them were incredibly innovative, like a virtual haircut app, right? If you remember last spring, last year, a little over a year ago now, most of the barbershops and hair salons were all closed, and people needed to get haircuts and did not have those skills. So they were trying to cut their own hair. And some of those haircuts really looked like they had cut their own hair and didn't know what they were doing. So one of our students proposed the idea of coming up with a virtual haircut app where you could kind of cycle through different hairstyles and try them on over your photo to see what it would look like on you, if the shape of your face would be complemented by a certain haircut. And then when you found one that you liked, it would also include directions and videos on how to cut your hair like that, so that as you cut your own hair, that it would come out looking much better than it had before when you were trying to cut it without any sort of knowledge or training on how to do that. Other apps like the What to Draw and the Craftomizer app ideas kind of revolved again around students being at home in their houses and really wanting something productive to do with their time, and knowing that they were kind of limited to what they had available to them in their house. So both of these apps really had the idea of taking inventory of what you had in your house and then being able to go through either projects that you could draw. If you wanted to learn to draw a cat or a dog, you could find photos of a cat or a dog so that you could actually see what it looks like. And it would help you, if you weren't the most artistic person, to have that photo there as you were learning to draw. And then you could share this photo back with a community through this app and get feedback from your community, and also that social interaction in that way. Very similar with the Craftomizer, again, kind of taking stock of what do you have at your house, Q-tips, popsicle sticks, cotton balls, glue. Based on the items that you have available, you could pick out different craft type projects that you could make, and then following those directions, you could post a photo of your finished project back to your community, and again, get feedback from the community on how well your project turned out, have that sort of social interaction, and maybe even upvote different projects on the ease of use or how well it turned out. So again, lots of social aspects to these apps. The clean room scanner I thought was a really innovative idea, where you could use AI or artificial intelligence to take a photo of your room, and that app would identify elements that were out of place or needed to be picked up, folded up, put away for your room to fit a certain standard of being clean. So I thought that was an incredible idea. I could tell there was maybe some parental influence there, maybe behind that app idea. And then again, another great community service type app was the first responders data mapping app idea by one of our students, knowing that sometimes first responders get held up on the way to an accident and responding to an accident because of traffic patterns that they're not aware of when they're driving through a new neighborhood. And so through this app, they'd be able to see the traffic patterns or hangups or areas of congestion and be able to be rerouted to a less congested travel path to be able to arrive in a more timely manner to that accident, to be able to serve their community again better. So you can see from these ideas how creative and innovative they were as our students were kind of brainstorming what sort of apps they would like to start thinking about creating and the level of interest that there might be in each of these as well. Step number 7 in this process then was really thinking about the app design and user interface and user experience and where all of those overlap. Again, not needing to know any coding language, any Swift language, any Xcode, or any other language for apps that might run on Android type devices. At this point, our students were solely focused on this process that app developers work through before they get to the coding part. So that brainstorming and planning and prototyping and evaluating process. At this point, we really utilized the Apple App Design Journal, totally free, available at the web address that you can see there on the slide. Again, on the bottom left corner, that bit.ly/STEM forward address will take you to my blog where you can grab a copy of these slides, and all of these links are clickable from there to get you there. But if you go to that web address, you'll be able to get a copy of the Apple App Design Journal, which is a Keynote file. It walks students step by step, screen by screen, through this whole process of thinking like an app developer through the brainstorming, planning, prototyping, and evaluating process, and what you think about and what you do in each of those stages of the process. So we had our students thinking about the app icons that they see in the App Store and in Google Play. What is there about an app icon that lets the viewer know this is a timer app, or this is a step counter app, or this is a calculator app? How does that icon instantly clue in someone who's looking for that type of app? Or if you're scrolling through your phone and all of the apps that you have or through your iPad, how do you land on the app that you're looking for just based on that icon alone? And how can you design, again, those catchy visual icons that will make people be interested in your app and make maybe one calculator app more appealing than another to someone who's looking to download that? We also talked about accessibility features and all of the different accessibility features that help everyone that you could build into an app. So we talked about screen readers, the different colors that you could put on a screen to help people to visually be able to distinguish dark text on a light background or light text on a dark background, or different colors that people may not be able to see, or what colors stand out the best when they're next to each other, which ones are complementary, which ones contrast, which ones maybe you do not want to have in your app together because they're very hard to look at when they're side by side. So all of these design elements were things that we started talking about with students that maybe we hadn't thought a lot about. We use these apps all the time on our phones, on our iPads, but we hadn't really maybe stopped to think about why are the colors green and blue as opposed to maybe a bright red and a bright lime green, which might be kind of hard to look at. Also thinking about button sizes and the user's experience. Can your thumbs reach all the way across the screen of an app to tap on different things, or are the apps too small so that you might hit 2 buttons at the same time? Or are they too large so that you can't reach all the buttons that you need to? So students really started brainstorming all sorts of things that they hadn't really thought about before in terms of how app designers start laying out the screen of an app to make that app more visually appealing to the user, but also easier for that user to use, whether it's a phone and they know that that end user will be mainly manipulating that app, possibly with just a thumb or a finger, or if it's an iPad. And again, knowing how the user would be holding that iPad, what fingers or thumbs they might be using to navigate all the different buttons that they may build into those apps. Again, through the app design journal, all of this is covered in there step by step. You can download that at the web address there on the screen. Again, it's clickable on the blog if you prefer to go there to click the web address rather than trying to type that or copy it over. You can download the app showcase guide as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later at the same website. Both of those, again, are free from Apple. And if you're not an iPad district, you could also do the same process with Google Slides if you use Google in your district, or if you have PowerPoint. If you're a Microsoft district, you could use PowerPoint to do this app design and app prototyping process as well. So don't feel limited, no matter what your tools are. I'm sure that you have something that your students can use to create these prototypes. Again, working through our app design journal, then on step number 8, we had our students start building their actual prototype. And again, we had to kind of wrap our mind around what is a prototype, because our students really, really wanted to jump in, learn some Xcode, and get some apps posted in the App Store for people to buy. And so we had to back up a step again and talk about the fact that we were focusing on the design and the app prototype process, which comes before the actual coding process. So our prototype is a working model that our students were going to build. We had them really storyboard out, either by drawing that out on paper or in their app design journal. They could use their finger or a stylus and the drawing tools right within the Keynote app to be able to draw out all of those screens that they felt they would need to have in their app that they were trying to create. And then again, that interactivity, when I click on the home screen, what do I expect my buttons to be on that home screen? If I have 3 buttons down there, when I click on each one of them, where do they go? And when I go to that screen, how do I get back to the home screen? So our students really spent a little bit of time thinking about how many screens they needed to have to get a working prototype going. And then what would be on each of those screens, and how many buttons, and where would those buttons be? And again, thinking about user experience and the user interface, all of the color and design elements and how close to put things were key to the students at this point. We also encouraged them to get a lot of feedback all throughout this process, whether that was from other students in the coding and app design camp, or if it was from family members at home. We let them know that feedback is really crucial to app developers, and sometimes they don't keep going with a project if they're not getting great feedback, right? If there's already 100 calculator apps in the App Store, and you're going to spend a significant amount of time making another calculator app, what is it that you have to have in your app to make it stand out more to people who are looking through the App Store over those other 100 apps that are available? And maybe it's not a calculator app that you want to invest all that time in. Maybe you want to invest time in something that there are not a lot of apps out there. Or maybe you have a new spin-off that you can do with a calculator app that really makes it stand out. So feedback is super crucial as you're going through the prototyping process and laying out those screens. We had our students create an All About Me app as their first prototype, where again, they started out with a really simple screen that just had a picture about themselves, a screen that had their story, maybe a little bit of information about themselves, and about the app screen where they maybe listed themselves as the app developer, and then their favorites screen where they listed out their favorite activities, food, clothes, games, music, and things like that. And again, thought about the interactivity between those buttons. Where would they link to when they tap on each button? Where would it go? Again, to really help them as they started building their prototype. And I hope you're going to be able to see this okay here. I'm going to play a little prototype created in Keynote. And again, this is included in the App Design Journal from Apple, so you can download this and use this as your sample. So you can see clicking on the first screen here, it loads up our app, a little bug app. We click on the camera and it's going to simulate that we're taking a photo of a bug. Then we're going to click on the home button. It's going to take us back to the home button. When we click on the view bugs button, it'll take us to our gallery. Again, when I click on the home button in the bottom corner, it's going to take me back to where I can tap on the search database, and that will take me to my database where I could type in the names of the bugs, where I found them, and the dates, and so forth. So a really simple app prototype, again, just a working model of an app. All of those butterflies and bugs that you see are shapes in Keynote. The buttons that were hyperlinked back and forth are just shapes, again, rectangles with some text typed on it. And then again, some shapes that are available in Keynote for the camera and the bugs and the magnifying glass. And then just through the regular everyday magic of hyperlinking, that's what's moving us back and forth between these screens. So instead of like a regular Keynote that I'm using right now, where I'm moving from slide 1 to slide 2 to slide 3 throughout the presentation, your hyperlinking will take you to the appropriate slide to demonstrate what that button does, and then back to the home screen again. So this was a great sample for our students to really be able to see what that prototype was that they were trying to create. Again, kind of what the expectation was that we were looking for, a working model of an app that they thought would be a great app to have added to the App Store. Step number 9 in our process then, as we're starting to wind down here in our 10 steps, was now that they had their idea, they started working on their prototype, they were getting feedback, they were laying out all their screens and getting all the buttons hyperlinked and thinking about what icons and colors they wanted everything to be. They really needed to think about a pitch, right? What makes people want to get one app over another app? How do you get like the Shark Tank interested in backing your app financially? So we ran through a lot of the elements of a good pitch. And for this, we used the Flipgrid app. So all of our apps that we're using throughout this entire process were free. We were doing everything that didn't involve any additional cost so that we could have as many students as we could involved in this summer camp. So for their pitch, we really wanted them to talk about what their app problem or challenge was that they were going to solve with their problem, a description of who their audience is. Who would want this app? Is it a teenager? Is it a 7-year-old? Is it a 25-year-old? Is it a 65-year-old? Who is this app really designed to help? Who are you trying to attract to download your app? We also had our students prepare both a 30-second app pitch or preview of what their app does and a 3-minute app pitch, including a demonstration and a walkthrough of their entire app and how to use it. When they click on each button, where does it go to? Again, our students didn't learn any Swift language or any Xcode, but we did have them thinking about coding concepts, conditionals, all sorts of things that they were learning about as they were playing the Swift Playgrounds app, in terms of if they were collecting data through that data input screen that you saw, where would that go? Where would that database be captured? And how would we maybe classify those variables? So they were thinking about the coding concepts, even though they didn't know that Swift language or the Xcode behind actually creating an app yet at this point. We encouraged them to really practice a lot with Flipgrid because we wanted them to be really fluent as they went through their 30-second overview of their app or their 3-minute overview and demonstration, because our last step in our process was really having an app prototype showcase where we had a panel of judges, and we wanted those judges to be able to give our students feedback when they saw these 3-minute demonstrations of the app. So additional things that the judges could suggest to the students that maybe they could go back and improve in their prototype, or questions for them about how they decided to include certain things, or if they thought they could maybe change a little something or tweak a little something a little bit to make their app even more appealing to a larger audience. And at this showcase, again, this was all virtual last summer, so it was all held through Google Meet. We had our students who were in our summer camp. We had their family members. We had other district staff involved. We had community members, and we had our judges there as well. And part of our judges involved some engineers from 3M. We also had the program manager for the Everyone Can Code curriculum from Apple in Cupertino as one of our judges on our panel. And we had an app developer from Bionic Giant. So a huge shout out to our judges for giving up their time and giving that feedback to our students. There is an app showcase guide also available on that same website as the App Design Journal that can be downloaded. And this really helps all of your judges to know what kind of feedback to give your students. There's a rubric there for them to think about as they're seeing these app prototypes demonstrated to them, and different things that they can call out to the students for maybe things that are highlights in the app, or maybe things that they want to suggest as small changes that a student might want to do a little bit more research on or a little change for. So this showcase was an incredible experience for our students. It was also a great way to build partnerships with these companies in our community. And this really led us then to that step of wanting to go further beyond just this summer app design and app prototyping experience to really create this interest in our students for these new middle school classes. And for that, we really wanted to leverage the Everyone Can Code curriculum, also available for free from Apple. And we wanted to build in more K-12 coding experiences for our students in kindergarten through 5th grade as well. And for our high school, we wanted to introduce new classes that were available other than AP level courses. So our explorations and fundamentals level courses, where again, students could explore programming and actually at the high school level, start learning Xcode and programming their own app. So this experience then really helped us to kick off this idea of app design and prototyping to get our students interested. This summer, we are rolling this experience into our summer school as an elective choice for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade summer school students. And again, we're also running the separate coding camp for our students who are maybe involved in summer school. So again, we want to go further with our students than just the hour of code per year to really build our students' computer science experience, their confidence level, and their desire to go further and pursue computer science and coding beyond the high school level. I want to thank you again for your time this evening. And if you're watching this in the future, for your time then as well. Again, if you have any questions on Twitter, you can tweet me at Turnbull Chris. Again, you can find all of these slides at bit.ly/STEM forward. That is also my blog there, playlearnteach.blogspot.com. So you can get all these slides, and all of the links are clickable there as well. But thank you so much for your time tonight.